Hey, we're good to
All right. Roll call, please. Fred Davis.
Here.
Jeff Albrecht.
Yes.
Terry Malak.
Yes.
Victoria Newport. Yes. Valerie Kennedy Hernandez. Here. Craig Smith.
Here.
Howard Stern.
Here.
Rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start tonight with public participation and recognition. And first we have recognition. And this is the Board of Education will recognize Cindy Carpenter and Elizabeth Guerrero for receiving certificates of achievement for excellence in financial reporting in the Association of School Business Officials International and the Government Finance Officers Association for their comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2016. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. The CAFR has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, including demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure, to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and user groups to read the CAFR. The Certificate of Excellence Award confirms the school business office's commitment to financial accountability and transparency. Recognition through the COE program can help strengthen a district's presentation for bond issuance statements and promotes a high level of financial reporting. This is the 7th consecutive year that DeKalb School District, or 28 Business Office, has received both prestigious awards. Congratulations.
Hey, Victoria. Could you read that again? I didn't catch that.
Catch my breath.
Congratulations.
Next, we have acceptance of gifts and donations. This is an action item that the Board of Education accept with gratitude the donation of $11,182 in grants from the DeKalb Education Foundation.
So,
Second.
Roll call, please. Fred Davis.
yes.
Jeff Albrecht.
Yes.
Terry Malak.
Yes.
Victoria Newport. Yes. Valerie Kennedy Hernandez. Yes. Craig Smith.
Yes.
Howard Stern. Next is public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card prior to the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not in order. First, we have Gina Ostenberg, and she would like to speak on class policy.
First up, no pressure. I know this is something that the board had decided a while back to stop the classroom parties. And I, for one, would beg you to reconsider. I've got multiple texts on my phone, messages that I've gotten for days. Please tell them about my crying children. Please tell them how poorly this is impacting the classroom and the students. When you think back to your own days in grade school, some of the best memories you have, if you're going to be really honest, is the day that your mom brought treats in, the day that you got to decorate your Valentine's Day box, the day that you got to give your friends those little, what are they, 30 cards for $1, whatever those things are. Please don't take that away from these kids. This country is a democracy. You have been elected officials. You have been elected to represent the people here. You're never going to make 100% of the people happy. You're not. But it should be the majority of the people that you try to accommodate. The majority of the people, the majority of the kids want these experiences. They should be allowed to have their little party. We have never, I have a high school sophomore, I have a college, high school junior, college sophomore. I have kids that are in 5th grade now. I have been in over 40 classroom parties through the years. We have never, ever had a kid be excluded for their beliefs because we wanted them excluded. If a parent makes that choice, let the parent make that choice. Please don't make that choice on behalf of everyone. I have forms that we only ask people for possibly one donation to one party, with multiple statements on the page. If you can't provide it, if you don't want to provide it, just tell us one thing from one party. That is not financially exclusive, but it gave people the option, if they didn't want to be included, to not be included. Allow the parties to happen with the understanding that cooperation, compromise, what do you want to include? All those parents can speak up. They can be allowed to have their kids included, or those parents can choose not to let their kids be part of it. But if you want to get down to the fiscal nuts and bolts of it, or even the social aspect, there are those kids, this may be the only party they're ever invited to. This may be the only social opportunity they have to interact with their peers. This may be the only time they get to do that. Don't take that away from them. Compromise can happen, discussion can happen, inclusion has always happened. Let them have them. Please.
Thank you. Next, we have elementary leadership, and they also would like to speak about the parties.
Good evening, members of the board. On tonight's board agenda, the board is scheduled to revisit the discussion of holiday parties. We stand here tonight representing the collective elementary principals of District 428. First and foremost, this was not a decision made top-down by administration. The decision to move away from traditional holiday parties was reached after careful thought and discussion by district and building administration, and included input from teachers. The decision was largely based on the fact that holiday parties isolate children and staff of minority faiths and cultures. Students and staff of District 428 come from backgrounds rich in many cultural and religious traditions, and it is our belief schools should focus on educating and respecting this diversity as opposed to holding school-sponsored parties that are non-inclusive by nature. This is in no way negates the opportunities for parents to be present in our buildings and assist with these celebrations. We still welcome our parents to be a part of their child's educational experience.
Instead, our schools will focus on celebrations that build community. Each school will continue to hold class and school-wide celebrations with foundations in PBIS and festivities that are beneficial in uniting children of diverse cultures in a common celebration. Additionally, schools will hold these celebrations quarterly. This will provide more opportunities for students to celebrate than the traditional 3 holiday parties. Our district handbook, which was approved by the board, states, as Community School District 428 continues to work to create and cultivate educational environments that reflect the core tenets of social justice, we believe holiday celebrations belong to families. Community School District 428 will continue to have school celebrations that serve the function of marking the passage of the year and connect children, staff, and families. This reflects our ongoing efforts to nurture a climate of dignity and respect for all of our students and families. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Samantha McDavid, and she would like to speak on the HVAC at Lincoln.
Good evening. My husband and I are working on paying off our debts. We have an emergency fund in place so that we are able to cash flow emergencies rather than rely on credit. We don't use it because we feel like a shopping spree. We use it for emergencies and then we replace it. The school district has a similar plan in place on a much larger scale we know as the fund balance, which is funded at approximately 29%. I've been to enough school board meetings to know that 15 to 25% is the desired percentage of funding in this account. The situation at Lincoln is an emergency. When the health, safety, equity, and education of our students are negatively affected for any length of time in our schools, it is an emergency. The asbestos removal and HVAC install at Lincoln Elementary is estimated at $1.32 million. If the entirety of this emergency were to be paid solely out of the fund balance, which is unlikely as there are possibly other funds available in life and safety, the fund balance would still be funded at approximately 27%, which is well above the target. I urge you to think about this emergency situation carefully and thoughtfully with health and equality for all of our students in mind.
Thank you. Next is John Ostenberg, and he would like to speak on class parties.
I don't want to take anybody's time reiterating things that my wife has already addressed. I had a slightly different focus on why I support the previous policy on class parties. I felt that it involved and engaged more parental activity in the classroom. There might be, to be honest, I'm not sure how I would even pursue being as involved now as I would have been in parties and as a room parent to take those activities. So I'm not entirely sure about what alternate venues there exist to at least get parents in the door, engaged in something, bringing in cupcakes for the kids or whatever else, helping with a craft for a party as opposed to maybe a food item. Those are all things that we've done in the past. Also, I think that as we start excluding items from the school just arbitrarily, we're not serving the diverse needs of our community as well as we might think. For one, I would be overjoyed to see involvement of all these groups that feel like they aren't being represented in the big three parties, to maybe have a party in the classroom or in some other venue to celebrate their holidays and get them involved and engaged. Again, I think that we're really missing a boat by arbitrarily and uniformly saying no to something without taking them on probably a case-by-case basis, or putting some more thought and not coming up with the easy no answer, rather than maybe a more thought-out answer that might be appropriate in each individual situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have board committee reports and correspondence.
I actually was invited to Jefferson to help with, the PT actually reached out. So what they're really trying to do is utilize the garden as a bridge to kind of have an interactive process of learning science, which was really, really, really nice. I really love the idea that PTA and Indeed is running it. And collaborating with the teachers. So they're making it a very hands-on experience for the kids. So I promised PTA that, I would share that. They have the support of Ms. Bickley. The collaborative process and the communication at Jefferson has been ideal to really incorporate more hands-on, utilizing all the resources around them, which I think is really ideal. Another wonderful thing also that I have been witnessing is that Little John, they're utilizing parental involvement. I know that that's key. That's the main focus again tonight. Even though we're talking about holiday parties, we're also talking about ways to get parents in. And I feel like Little John is addressing some of those concerns by also incorporating, making it a goal for each teacher to at least hold one, parental engagement, either night or class during the classroom during the day. To incorporate and allow parents to come in and support them, via like centers or some curriculum activity. And it's parent driven where the parents are in charge of it rather than the teacher. So, being able to experience both of those things as their, school board liaison, going in and seeing those things or reading about it, I just wanted to make sure that, as a board, we knew what was going on in those two buildings. I think they're ideal. They're pretty remarkable to witness and to see and to, kind of be invited to see that. So kudos to the PTA and kudos to Little John as well. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
I did attend the PTA meeting September 26th at Huntley Middle School, and was very pleased with what I saw. Mostly, they're forming a lot of committees, and chairmanship of various other things was being settled, and parents were enthusiastically jumping into chairmanships, taking on responsibilities to the extent that I looked at and said, this is really nice. They plan to do a number of fundraisers, and in particular, we're concerned with one proposal of a fundraiser called Penny Wars, which I think is about the collection of pennies and small coins for fundraising purposes that could actually get to students and ask students to contribute more and more, which they were wondering, will the board approve it? Since everything is purely voluntary, I suggested that indeed that the board is likely to approve something that there is no coercion involved with the collection of these funds, and so it probably is legitimate, but I can't speak for the board, so it's something that we will have to raise as our own issue as we move on. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to our schools for the DeKalb Education Foundation. The baskets that were donated were incredible. I'm not sure who won, but you guys did a great job. We raised a lot of money through that silent auction. And also thank you to our retired teachers. They donated over $300 worth of gift cards. So that was a nice wreath that they made out of the gift cards. So thank you to all the buildings for great donations. Very much appreciated. Cindy, you wanted to talk, just give an update on the bond restructuring?
Yeah, we had our bond rating call last week, and we received our bond rating today, which is affirming what we're currently at, which is AA2, which is awesome news, because we were a little worried because of the state of Illinois and the status of their budget, which is better than it was, but there was still some indication that might put a little pressure on the rating, but they did affirm it, so that is great news for when we start continuing this time.
Thank you. Thanks for that. That's a great update.
So on another financial note, the insurance committee met again last Wednesday, and we have WL benefits here again tonight to inform us a little bit further on what's happening. We're trying to get the cost down, trying to increase this ever substantial, and looking at the potential of self-funding a dental plan. So I'm sure they'll present something on that. And then the insurance committee meet again on the 11th, I think it is. And ultimately, then after that, present a recommendation to the full board.
Any other? Thank you. Next, we have presentations, diversity needs assessment and data presentation. And this is Dr. Jenny Huber, Dr. James Cohen, and Dr. J.Q. Adams. And this is an informational item.
I just want to introduce. This is Dr. Cohen, and he's in the College of Education at Northern Illinois University. And this is Dr. J.Q. Adams, Professor Emeritus from Western Illinois University. And they are going to share with you the findings from the Diversity Needs Assessment Survey. They will share strengths, opportunities for growth, and then recommendations for us.
All right, good evening, everybody. Once Jenny gets it up, the PowerPoint up, I'll start talking. Dr. Stevens, also from Western Illinois University, helped us. Essentially, what we did is there we go. No. There you go. Okay, so we conducted 28 focus groups in total, 6 parents, 7 school personnel, and 15 student groups. We also conducted 1,581 surveys from students, 40 of which were conducted in Spanish, or were completed in Spanish, 491 surveys from school personnel, and 502 surveys from parents, 9 in Arabic and 29 in Spanish.
And one of the things that we were very concerned with from the very beginning was to make sure we were being as culturally responsive as we could. So that's the reason for, in fact, some of the surveys were actually done in the native languages of various groups within the community. So,
we actually originally proposed only 23 focus groups, but as we were collecting data and learning new things, as good researchers do, we went back into the field and collected and did more focus groups because we wanted to hear more from the students particularly. The findings, we had 7 key themes in our findings, and the first one was collaboration. When the teachers and the support staff and the school as a whole, when they were collaborating, when they had time to discuss and work with each other, everyone was very happy. When they didn't have time to collaborate, I mean, one of the, John Hattie did this huge meta-analysis several years ago, and the second most important thing that a school can do is provide opportunities for teachers and support staff to collaborate. And that's exactly what we found. One of the first key findings that we found was when they were collaborating, it worked. When they weren't allowed to collaborate, the morale, the feeling of being a part of the community dropped. So collaboration was one of the key things that we found. Now, the community here in DeKalb has been changing over the last few years, and it's been changing drastically. And there's been a lot of response, negative and positive, to this phenomenon of people who haven't been here in the past, now are. And how the district and the community as a whole has been responding to these various communities. A major section of the report, and we submitted the report last week, so I'm assuming you all, the board, had time to at least sift through it a little bit, peruse it, and see what the findings were. It's not as positive as it could be. Students are not feeling as they should be. They're not feeling as welcome, and we'll be getting into that in a minute. Another theme is generalizations. When you have a group of people or groups of people coming into a community, you don't understand or know or are not familiar with people who fit into these different communities. Ultimately, what ends up happening is the finger pointing starts happening. The profiling, the generalizing, the stereotyping. And again, we, in detail, provided evidence that this is happening in our schools a lot.
And I think it's important that you also understand this is happening all across it.
Right.
This nation is changing, and as a result of those changes, we begin to see some of the stresses and strains from that. The kind of polarization that we see taking place in America, this is a microcosm of it.
Knowledge of cultural diversity was another theme that we wrote on, that the data was really, really strong. Essentially, the finger pointing is happening from the previous theme because all the groups, all the different racial and ethnic groups, don't know how to work with each other. That's the bottom line. It's not, no one's pointing the finger in one direction. The finger is being pointed in all directions. Every group is pointing the finger at every other group. And when you read the report, you're going to see it's going all directions. So when JQ and I are standing up here telling you that finger pointing is happening, that generalizing and profiling is happening, we don't need that in our schools. Kids need to feel safe. They need to feel like they're belonging, and they need to feel like they are welcomed. And right now, major portions of our school district, the students are not feeling that.
Brene Brown has a very interesting book out there. She talks about the difference between fitting in and belonging. We have a lot of young people, as well as teachers, administrators, who are working to fit in and not working to belong. And so we need to be able to change that balance so people want to belong, because that's what's going to give them the buy-in, that's going to allow us to make the kinds of changes that, that's going to be productive for their academic achievement and for that kind of collaboration that we talked about earlier.
So in the last few years, there's been a lot of turmoil, to say the least, in the leadership. And that has ramifications, that has implications, that a trickle down really does happen. Schools don't, the people in the schools, the personnel, and even the students were talking about the changing of personnel and how they don't like that. They need consistency. And this was a huge theme in the data. All these 7 are obviously huge themes. But the emotion that came with the voices when they were talking about the leadership and the constant turnover and the leaving, it really makes a difference. So we have a number of recommendations to work with this as well.
You mean within the district leadership within our district 428?
Yes. All of this is
Starting at the
428.
top and then trickling down to the buildings.
Right. The many faces of fear. The teachers in particular and support staff also they expressed some major fear of being reprimanded, being fired, being targeted by their superiors. Students, especially in the high school, the amount of fear in the high school, in the hallways, in the cafeteria, especially in the locker bay area. The students are, certain groups of students they literally tremble when they go into those areas. And I understand that actions have been put in place this year as opposed to last year. We've been collecting data now since last January, and we collected it for about 5 months. So we have a tremendous amount of data. We have more data than we want to know what to do with.
I think you saw the size of the reports.
Yeah.
Did anybody really read every page?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's a big report.
Not yet.
Very good.
All right. So there are some wonderful strengths that are happening in District 420. And one of them is collaboration, like I said earlier. Teachers have a strong sense of self-efficacy, that when they are collaborating, they can solve problems and make a difference with their students, in their departments, in the school as a whole. Teachers are more effective when they can collaborate and when they can have meaningful dialogue with their peers, with their colleagues. And this is, not only does the research in the field support this, but the research that we conducted supports this as well. However, when they don't have this collaboration, they feel like they do not have a voice. They feel like they're not being treated as professionals, and frankly, they're feeling like they're being left out of the mix. You don't want that. This is probably the biggest finding, and now this is my specialty. I work with ESL bilingual students, as that's what my dissertation was on. That's what I teach at Northern. This is what I've been working in this field for the last 25 years. And I've never heard of this in the data, in the research. And so this really blew me away, which it makes total sense, but I haven't heard of this phenomenon in other data before. So this is something that, but it totally makes sense. Basically what's happening is the students, the Latino students, because of the bilingual program, they feel like they belong in our school, in our elementary schools. They feel like they see themselves in their classroom materials. They feel like the teachers are culturally responsive and sensitive to their needs. Now, this is in the research. What I'm going to tell you in a few minutes is not in that I've seen in the research. Basically, they feel like they belong in school, which is terrific. The Latino students in District 428 at the elementary school level is absolutely a success story. Hands down. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. It's a success story. In terms of the sense of belonging from the parents and the students, it's fabulous. Okay, another strength. All right, so areas to be improved, however. Contrast the Latino students with many of the Black students. Overwhelmingly, the Black students did not feel and do not feel like they belong in our schools. They do not feel like the teachers are culturally sensitive. And this is from kindergarten through 12th grade. The Black students overwhelmingly do not feel like their teachers are culturally responsive or sensitive. They don't see themselves in the classroom materials. They have an overall sense of alienation from the district as a whole. They also feel that the policies that are implemented treat them differently than the white students. So this is something that absolutely needs to be addressed and will be addressed in the recommendation section in about 3 minutes. Go ahead.
And what's also important here is that we're looking at this both in terms of the qualitative work that is done as well as the quantitative. And so using this kind of mixed method, you want to see whether or not they're going to support each other. And the data here really does support each other. So from both sides, both the quantitative and the qualitative, which tells us that there's a lot of power, there's a lot of strength in what's being reported.
So areas to be improved. Remember I told you how wonderful the Latino students are feeling at the elementary school level. The bilingual program stops at 5th grade. After 5th grade, and once again to middle school and 6th grade, it's English only. And all of that goodwill, the longer they are away, the further they go away from the elementary school, the more tension, the more upset they become. The data is very clear on this. They don't feel like they belong at the middle school or at the high school level. The middle school, kind of, but at the high school, absolutely not. In fact, they say that there's more tension, even among comparing the Black students and the Latino students. The Latino students feel like there's more tension against them than the Black students. So this is a phenomenon that absolutely has to be addressed. All the goodwill that is happening at the elementary school dissipates the further they go away from the elementary school.
I have a question. Are you tracking students are we staying with, does the study only include those students that started the elementary level and move into, don't we get isn't there a fair amount of population that moves in at middle school and high school levels? Do you track, did you distinguish that, or is there, so it's fairly small?
There's significant mobility in your district.
There is a great deal.
Yeah.
I just wonder whether the study took that into
It's
consideration.
only capturing what is present during that time period.
Right, so in a sense, it could be a false indicator if there were a large wave of people coming in at a certain level.
Possibly.
I mean, in other words, the goodwill that would be at the early level. I'm just asking. I'm not making any judgment about it. I'm just saying, does that data get captured in your study?
No.
That specific question does not get captured because it's not a longitudinal study.
I understand. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. So as they continue on, they feel, they sense, no, can you go back to anything? They feel that they lose a sense of voice and feel that school enacts. They also, the Latino students in the high school level, also feel like the policies put in place treat them differently than the white students.
But also the white students feel that way too. So
Exactly.
it's a very interesting phenomenon. So that's that mutual finger pointing that we're referring to other, which is kind of an interesting phenomenon that's happening again, and it's happening across the country. It's this feeling of victimization that all groups are feeling. Interesting phenomenon.
And then ultimately here, the Latino students also feel that they no longer see themselves in the classroom materials as they did in the elementary school. And that the teachers are no longer as culturally responsive or sensitive to their needs at the middle and high schools. So these are significant findings. Also, areas to be improved, bullying. The quantitative data mainly said that the bullying was happening at the high school more than at the middle school. However, the focus groups that I conducted at the middle school level, there's nothing more powerful and more painful than seeing a small 6th and 7th graders, girls crying, weeping uncontrollably because they've been bullied. They have a major fear of going to administration because they feel that when they go to the administrator is going to talk to the kids who are bullying them, and then the kids are going to up the ante and bully them more. So there's this fear. Try anyone. We all have children, right? Try sitting and listening to a 12-year-old, 13-year-old crying uncontrollably because they've been bullied so badly, punched. It's awful. It's happening. So the relationships with administrators and rest of school buildings, especially at the high school, have suffered due to administrative turnover. Staff commented that they rarely see the administrators when they need them. Relationships with new administrators need to be proactively built to create an atmosphere of trust and understanding. So the turnover rate with the administrators, this is the result. And so this is an area that needs to be improved. So our recommendations. Do you have any questions so far? I'm going through this really quickly because we have a limited amount of time. I'll just continue then. Recommendation number 1, professional development at all levels regarding equity, inclusion, cultural competence, and responsiveness education. When we submitted our proposal originally, that included the board. So you are the lucky ones who get to hang out with JQ and me for several hours to talk about these things. The hierarchical structures of society, we cannot understand what's going on in our schools without really understanding the historical and hierarchical structures that exist in our society. We cannot understand it. So we have our own little worlds and realities that we live in, but we don't oftentimes understand what other people's realities are. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Implicit and explicit bias, these things are, we all have it. It's a survival of the fittest thing. It's these biases that we have is what makes us human beings and what makes us survive. So we have to be aware of these biases. Privilege in all its forms. There is such a thing as white privilege. There is such a thing as male privilege. The way I walk through the society and how society views me is vastly different than the way society views JQ, just because of the color of our skin. That's a reality. That's a fact. That's what we have to talk about. If we don't talk about these things, we fully can't understand what our students are going through and what our teachers and staff are going through.
And again, there's many kinds of privileges.
Yes.
Not just white and black, not just male and female. And we need to be able to investigate all of them and see how they impact the kinds of phenomena we see happening in the district.
Right, the LGBTQ community in the high school. In the classrooms, they feel safe. Hallways, cafeteria, locker bays, vastly different story. Being slapped, it's not pretty. How to develop systems of equity in district, school building, and classroom levels. And this is inclusive of hiring people of color. We have to be specific, purposeful, strategic in how we do our hiring here.
And that's a difficult one.
Yes.
Because let's face it, there is a shortage of people of color, which means that there are going to have to be long-term strategies. Some of the best are the grow your own kind of strategies. But that requires a real commitment, and it has to be a long-term commitment. You have to be able to see the worth of it. New study came out just last year. If a African-American child has one teacher of color in their first 4 years of schooling, it increases their possibility of graduation over 30%. I mean, it's really quite incredible, you know, to think about that. And of course, because of where you're located, this community, even with the university here, you know the difficulty that you've had, hiring and maintaining teachers of color. But if we're really talking about serving the needs of the children in this district, it's just a must. And oh, by the way, it's good for all students. It's not just good for the African American students. It's good for all the students when they see diversity in the classroom.
Recommendation number 2, developing welcoming processes. For new teachers, mentoring programs, induction programs, various types of pedagogical procedure supports. Jenny asked me a question earlier. You made lots of changes in your mentoring program, your induction program. What are we specifically stating? We're talking about, how did I respond to that?
How do you change the climate?
How do you change the climate?
How do you create a climate that says to a person of color that this is a good community to live in, that this is a district that you want to invest in, that you want to stay here for 20 years, that you want to retire from here? How do we do that? And again, I'm not saying that these things are easy, but I am saying they can be done, but it requires long-term commitment. All the kind of things we're talking about requires long-term commitment. If you think these are Band-Aid approaches, please. We're far too complicated of a society now for Band-Aids.
And by all players.
Absolutely.
Not just,
Absolutely.
we're not a top, this can't be a top-down sort of thing.
Exactly.
We have to involve all players.
Yeah.
100% right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For new students, a buddy system, school ambassador system, multicultural school environment, affinity group mentoring from NIU. This was quite phenomenal. The Black Student Union. Let me tell the story about when you went and met with them, the Black Student Union, and the influence that NIU has with them.
Yeah, just suffice to say, when you don't see your face in the population that you're in the building with every day. And as you know, in the high school, there was one African-American teacher there the previous year, and unfortunately that teacher died. Okay? So where do I find my role models if I'm a student in that school? There's some staff there, not the same as teachers. There's a few administrators there, not the same as teachers. So to have this wonderful resource that you have in your community, comprehensive university, where there are people of color, makes a humongous difference in the lives of these young people. And hearing them talk about that experience when I went to their presentation at NIU, when I visited their meetings at the high school, it's a lifeline for them. It provides them role models they need. Now, again, the wonderful thing about NIU is that it can provide this for many other groups within the high school. So we're not just talking about African-American students or teens, we're talking about all the kinds of diversity that exists now in your community. You have wonderful role models there at NIU. You really need to continue to take advantage of those opportunities.
New parents, multilingual, multicultural, multiracial office staff, greeting parents to the building, and we need to be continuing the parent university. The parent university is fabulous. When I conducted the focus group at the parent university, we did it in Spanish. I did it in Spanish, and I was amazed. That group of people is fabulous and really smart. And if we can tap into that strength and that intelligence and that, wow. So if we could get them into our schools on a more frequent basis, our schools would be amazing. And the reason I keep on saying ours is because, if not all of you know, I live in DeKalb and my daughter does go to Huntley Middle School. So I'm also a parent. I'm not just a professor outside looking in.
Well, I don't think everyone on the board knows what the parent university is. I'm not sure. Are you guys aware of what's going on with the parent university? I mean, I know Victoria knows, but no. And I mean, Amy, maybe you can speak to what that means for Dr. Cohen.
Well, go ahead. Yeah,
Parent University is run by Susana Las Neves from NIU, and she comes out to DeKalb High School every Thursday. And this is a university for parents. that gets them more involved in schools, teaches them their rights in the school system, engages them with the community, and it basically empowers parents. We have parents there who don't know how to read, all the way to parents who were formally educated in other countries. And what they all have in common is that they're Spanish speakers. And this is something that empowers them and engages them in our schools and in our community.
And they're basically learning the cultural capital of the United States. How to do school, how to be productive citizens, residents in the United States. How to get their kids to be successful academically, how to file for FAFSA, all of these things. It's really a fabulous program. So that needs to continue.
Right, and so your comment on how do we get investment from all the stakeholders, that's an example of how that can be done. And certainly should be done, if it's not already, by all facets, so that parents have the opportunity to learn the skills that they need to help their children. A lot of times, parents just don't know. Trying to do math with my son, I had to go back and learn with him. Okay, I've had advanced mathematics, okay, but the way we teach it now in the system is much different than the way I learned. So you can only imagine then for parents who don't have that skill set, but they want to help their kids, they just don't have the skills to do that. So parent effectiveness training would be something that we could do here, would make a huge difference in getting parents involved, working as the advocates that they should be, but now with the skills to be able to help their children master their faith.
So recommendation number 3, strengthen district school spirit, unity, and collaboration. At the student level, we need to be creating opportunities that encourage different groups such as Future Farmers of America and Black Student Union to share responsibilities in organizing an event. They never interact. How are you supposed to understand and be able to work with somebody if you literally never interact? So give them a common goal. Have them organize a group, an event together. And they were willing to do this when I spoke with them.
And one of the most amazing things is we looked at their data. For folks that you would think are black and white, they're far more similar than they are different. And it speaks to probably adolescence, okay? And the universality of being young. But when you don't have that opportunity to mix, to get to know each other than rumor and mythology and all that nonsense, when you have the opportunity to work together for a common goal, common purpose, a lot of those myths get destroyed. Okay, and so we need to create more opportunities for those kinds of exchanges to happen.
So and we also are recommending that you invite NIU resource centers, Center for Black Studies, Latino Resource Center, Center for Women's Studies, all of these different centers. There's a ton of them on campus. We should be working together. NIU and DeKalb School District should absolutely be working together on much more in depth than we are right now. And we could do it. That's mentoring, right? The college students can be mentoring our students. Okay. At the building level, expand opportunities for teachers, support staff, and administrators to collaborate on shared projects, keeping students' best interests in mind while building relationships. To belong as opposed to just fit in through shared strategic planning. We have to go faster, so keep going, Jen. At the district and board level, maintain the consistency needed when hiring administrators and developing retention policies. Visit buildings to listen and learn rather than evaluate, and attend extracurricular school events. Students love it when their teachers, when their administrators, when the board, when they go to these extracurricular activities, whether it's a football game, a basketball game, or a play or a musical, whatever it is. Students love to see people there. They're authority figures. They love to see them there because it's a different light. And you will see the community growing together when this happens. Okay. Number 4, emphasis on nonviolent and compassionate communication at all levels.
Yeah, communication was one of the big items that constantly ran through the data, especially the qualitative data. And a lot of it's just how we communicate with each other as human beings. There are some things we have in common, and that is all human beings have the same basic needs. If we can get an amen on that, an agreement on that, that becomes a foundation then for being able to really effectively communicate with each other. Far too much othering takes place in this district. We saw so many of these us and they, we and them, good and bad. And, that comes again from not having, enough good mixing, those collaboration opportunities so that we can see each other as truly as being human beings and not as being others. Get rid of the other, make it seamless, be amazing what we can do. That's what nonviolent and compassionate communication can help you. Make us really be careful of the words we use and how we use them.
So this one is developed. This is speaking obviously as all the other ones, but directly to the data. Remember I told you before that the Latino boys and girls feel very welcomed and they feel like they belong in the elementary school level. And the farther they go away and the further they go, they move themselves from the elementary school level, the more distance they have from themselves feeling like they belong. So a recommendation that I think could really, it's not the panacea, but it can clearly solve a lot of the issues that we're having in our district.
What did you just say? What did you say is the solution that is not a panacea? What did you?
I'm going to tell you right now.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a two-way bilingual program, two-way dual language. Basically, right now, all the Latino boys and girls, not all, the majority of them are in, the Spanish dominant kids are in what's called a maintenance. Right, there's three words, there's three names for that. It's late exit, maintenance, and a one-way dual language. I know it's confusing, but those are the three terms that we use for what we have in DeKalb right now. It's basically Spanish dominant kids being allowed to continue, not even allowed, but advocating to the continuation of their Spanish literacy and oracy and learning English literacy and oracy. So by the time they're in 5th grade, they are bilingual and biliterate and bicultural. Now, like I said earlier, what happens in middle school, they lose that sense of belonging. And then in high school, it's even worse. So what we're recommending is let's open it up. Let's open up. We already have the resources. We already have the personnel, the teachers. Let's open it up to everybody. So the white and the black and the Asian and everybody else gets into these classes. That's called a two-way dual language program. So now what's happening? The Spanish dominant kids are working with the English dominant kids. They're working off of each other. And everything pertains to power when we're talking about anybody interacting with two people. Anyone, it's always called positionality. And I position you, you position me, I position myself, you position yourself. So this power differential that's always existing happens in a dual language classroom in a positive way. Because what happens is the Spanish dominant kids position the English dominant kids in power, as a position of power, when they're learning English. And then what happens when they're learning Spanish? The English-speaking kids elevate the Spanish-speaking kids in a position of power. So it's more equitable and equal. And they're learning how to work with each other, and it's a win-win-win. There is a longitudinal study for the last 30 plus years with over 6 million students studying or looking at the data from dual language programs. It's a no-brainer. This recommendation here, if we can implement this in DeKalb School District, I promise you a lot, well, I can't promise you, but a lot of our problems will be gone. I pretty much guarantee it.
Well, the benefits are you end up with kids that are bilingual and bicultural.
Yeah. And
Think about the world we're living in and what a wonderful attribute to have, to be bicultural. And then hopefully it could expand. So it's not just English, Spanish, it might be English, Arab. If we got Arab speakers, Africans, whatever, Asian, and stuff, so that we start producing kids leaving the school that speak multiple languages feel comfortable in multiple cultures. And so then a lot of that dissonance and interference that we've been, kind of talking about dissipates, because guess what? I know about you. You know about me. I know about your culture. You know about my culture. And suddenly we've got friends across cultures. Instead of enemies across cultures, others across cultures, we've got a lot more we going on, and not so much of, those folks over there and those folks over there.
Do you have models for these? I mean, in other words, there are programs that are already in place in schools where they've been successful,
Yes.
so that I mean, in theory, we could look at those models.
Yes. And in Illinois?
In Illinois, goes all the way through high school. Woodstock is a phenomenal district. They have a dual language program all the way through 12th grade. And these kids are graduating so globally, intellectual, it's unbelievable. Iowa, of all places, they have dual language programs as well, going all the way through 12th grade.
And
This has
just
been going on
real
for
quick, I know we're
years.
running over, but we're one of the few countries in the world that really is not multilingual. When you look at Europe, when you look at South America, when you look at Africa, they're all multilingual. And so they have an advantage, because of that. Okay, we're acting like monolingualism is something we should be proud of. We live in a world that is growing more diverse every single day. And so the better we can be prepared to live in the global society, the more damaged our kids are going to be, and the more competitive in the global market.
And what the research says is it's not just bilingualism, it's biliteracy. If you're able to read and write in 2 different languages, then you are much more marketable.
And it increases your achievement.
So I got a question. If this is such a great thing, why have we had millennia now with nations being separate and speaking separate languages? And I mean, if this is, the other folks here, our staff, have presented the advantage of a dual bilingual situation. But logically speaking, wouldn't that, going way back, have brought us to this place much sooner?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, here's the difference. If we peel back, we had these big humongous oceans that separated us from Europe and separated us from Asia. Well, those oceans aren't formidable anymore. Now with the telecommunications, we have the satellites, so forth and so on. What used to be barriers now are opportunities. And so we're literally living in a different time than we've ever been. We live in synchronicity now. The planet has never been in synchronicity, which simply means when that hurricane happens, 5,000 miles away, we know about it like that, okay? And so the bridges that we can build now across distance should move us toward a new paradigm.
So you're saying technology is the difference between then and now?
That's a big part of it. And also please realize that in Europe, for example, the average person there speaks 3 or 4 languages. So even though they may have a state language in France, and French might be the language, they also speak German, they also speak Italian, they also speak Spanish.
I don't know. I mean, when I started high school, they were teaching Latin. That was the main thing, right? And then I began German, right? And now it's Spanish. And I imagine Mandarin is about to hit us, right? Because clearly that's the largest people group in the world.
That's very true.
But the other thing I wonder about is this technology that's bridged the Gulf, the oceans and the mountains and so on. What happens when that fails? And look at Puerto Rico, for instance, and what happened there just recently, right? And we have all kinds of technology, and yet it's a problem. I mean, they're hurting there. So technology is a 2-edged sword, and if you lean on it too hard, you might hurt yourself.
You're not going to get enough.
But if you don't take advantage of it, you also get left behind.
Yeah, and you may be forced. Yeah.
We are interrupting your presentation.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Well, that's okay, questions. So what we recommend is that we open it up to a 2-way dual language program, expand the 1-way dual language program through the middle school years because they need it there. And then once the 2-way dual language catches up to the middle school, disband the 1-way and continue the 2-way all the way through high school. That's what we recommend. There are plenty of books that we can use and to teach you how this is implemented. Implement courageous leadership education.
Yeah, we're running out of time here, and we don't want to tax you, but simply to say there's some great new models out there for leadership. The work there by Blankenstein and Logura is really good stuff. I highly recommend you take a look at the book. But there are ways in which you guys can become more powerful. You need to be more powerful. You need to be more influential. And these are some ideas of how to do that. And what's great about them, you do that by serving. This is about service. So when we learn to be better servants, we become better leaders.
So when you say we need to be more powerful, that's inclusive of the district? Or
Yes.
are you talking about the board?
No, I'm talking about the board and the district becoming seamless. Yep. Working together.
Address recommendation number 7, address pervasive bullying, strengthen the current bullying program that you have, introduce this concept of mindfulness education.
Yeah, I mean, some of guys are doing it out already, but we need to see it being incorporated throughout the district. Give kids the opportunity to learn how to control their own behaviors. I've worked in districts, I'm working in districts now that have amazing facilities that they've taken in terms of changing the environment of the school. So folks have places they can go and chill, get back in touch with themselves, get themselves settled, get themselves centered, and then be able to reintegrate themselves into the population and keep moving on and stuff. So these are just techniques that can be learned and will certainly help with the classroom management.
Questions?
I have a comment. There's a lot here. And I know the report's 100 pages, and just in a 24-slide presentation, there's a lot of initiatives built into your recommendation. And I'm sure that the board and district staff are going to have need a lot of discussion time and take all of this into consideration, because there's a lot of this is extremely important. This is extremely important, and if they're all important, then none of them are. So where do we start? This is going to be a big discussion that we're going to have, and I'm sure the board is going to want to have. This is fantastic feedback, incredible feedback for us to look at and consider.
Well, we definitely want to thank your folks, because we could not have done this without them giving us access to the classrooms, to the faculties, administrators, the staff, and so forth. And it's been quite a learning experience for us as well. The greatest thing about our job is it keeps us unfinished, just learning. The next phase for us is to begin working with the Social Justice League to actually develop a diversity plan. And I think that's going to really help you guys as well, in terms of, to kind of triage this thing down into some meaningful objectives and steps and timelines. So hopefully that process will make your job easier.
I've got a question about the mechanics of how you gather the data. So I did have a chance to quickly breeze through it. I only concentrated on a few pages here and there just to get a sense of what it was like, but there's so much more. But one thing I noticed was that in some cases at the middle school level, I think it was, you didn't have a great response. And so those results were added in to another group. But with respect to the randomness, the anonymity, how do you actually do it? What are the mechanics? I mean, how do we know for sure that the data that you've collected comes from people in this district? And how do you then make us feel comfortable with knowing that in fact they came from that and still maintain the anonymity of your response?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is one of the reasons why we use the mixed method approach. And by that, I mean, we surveyed everybody. So anybody who wanted an opportunity to get feedback had that opportunity. Focus groups were more selective because you just can't interview everybody. So we looked very carefully and strategically at who should we invite into a focus group. We wanted to make sure we have the cultural consistency that we talked about. We want to make sure that we're looking at the whole community so the community had a chance to give their voice. There were situations in which we had to go back to a community several times to make sure we got representation because they didn't respond initially. But we didn't let that stop us because we know we needed those voices. So the combination of using both of those methods assurance that we were at least giving people the opportunity to respond. And even with the survey data, there were open-ended questions. So if you wanted to be able to write a comment about something, that opportunity was there. And we got tons of data from that. And the cool thing was that data reflected the focus group data, I mean, almost one-to-one. It's kind of scary and stuff. So we feel really pretty confident that we've done a good job at getting the voices of your community and of your district.
The names that we took were from, the district gave us the emails. The district gave us the names. So I guess somebody could have come from another district if they wanted to fill out a survey, but I'm not sure why they would want to do that, or how they would do that. Focus groups, the parents who came, all the students were clearly students here because we went into the school and got the parents. They were talking specifically about my child is in X school and is having this experience. So the only thing that I could think of was maybe, does the parent university, they have some Sycamore parents? Yeah. They have 10? Yeah, and when I conducted that focus group, I specifically said this is only for DeKalb parents. So there is that's not a concern of ours at all. Your question. Yeah.
I sometimes feel it's my job to be the doom and gloom fellow, but this comes with, I mean, I look very much towards models as far as cost. One of the reasons why we have some of these programs restricted to a certain grade level is because to expand them into other grades costs us money. So some costs are attached. So my proviso would be that we are not going to just look at this for lots of different reasons. One of the things that I'm going to be looking at very strongly here is, I mean, balancing what you guys, the recommendations against the cost of those implementations. So I know that you guys, that's not your job, is to think in terms of cost, but it certainly is, I think, the responsibility of the board to be doing that as well. So,
absolutely.
So I mean, I definitely appreciate your recommendations. I'm going to be saying, okay, what's this going to cost us? And it's not going to be because we shouldn't do it. It's just because we're $1.5 million in debt this year, and moving up to $7 million in debt. So it's not like we're saying, oh my goodness, we've got plenty of money, let's spend it. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm that voice of.
It's a reality.
Whatever my voice is, I don't know.
It's good. It's a reality.
Yeah,
that all school districts are.
Yeah. So we'll look. I mean, I definitely look to other people to say, okay, what did this run here, and those kinds of issues as well. But thank you so much for the recommendations.
Other questions?
You need to read.
I guess I would recommend that we, as a board, take some time to look through these reports. There's a lot of information there. It's very hard to take it all in one sitting to go through the information.
The survey report is what, 60-something pages?
It's over about 100 pages of information.
And qualitative is over 40 something.
Yeah, so
Thank you so much for going back and your diligence in pursuing the information. In other words, where you didn't have information, to go be dogged about going back and seeing that you have the balanced piece of information. So thank you so much for your determination.
yeah, I think we should, as a board, take some time and continue to read this, look at it, discuss it, and at a future board meeting, make a where we're gonna go with this, where the plan is gonna be, what the board feels should be in the plan, and who should be at that process of creating a plan. Is that?
And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Jenny has been a wonderful liaison. And so we'll write specific questions and she'll get those to us, and then we'll try to provide you with them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have the benefit renewal rates plan option. And this is a WO benefits and an information label.
So as Karen mentioned earlier, the benefits committee met again last week, after all this year, at last board meeting to present, so we're trying some updates and more information, and we'll meet again next week as well. So we can continue to get information.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Good to be here again. I'll keep it very brief. We do have updates for you on the renewal of the benefits for the district this year. As we promised from our last meeting, we were hard at work on a variety of areas, and some of suggestions from the board, and we acted on those. So as we go forward, please, I will do a quick review. I'll leave plenty of time for any questions you have. I don't want to be late at the meeting, so we'll continue. So we went through our medical proposals. We did talk about at length, ad nauseam, really, about Blue Cross Blue Shield, the reason for the increase. At the last meeting, we were at 8.7% increase, and I was able to get Blue Cross to move another point off of the renewal. So we're down to 7.7. I won't give up the ghost until the last board meeting, and I'll keep trying. I'm going to try everything that I can. I did suggest, and it was proper, that we might actually have a 2% reduction off of the renewal negotiation. We got one. I'm still going to try for that other percent. I'm going to give this another great thing. So by the next final meeting, we will have that solidified. Right now, we're at 7.7% reduction, which is better than last year by I think about 3%. So we're doing.
Paul, what percentage is due to the ACA uncertainty or whatever you'd like?
Yeah, thank you. That's solidly 4%. Medical insurance carriers put 4% into your rates now for the ACA fund. So it wasn't for that, we did 3%.
Affordable Care.
That's exactly right. Okay, so that the good news here is 1% reduction. You'll see it there at 7.70. We were at 10.9. We'll continue. We looked at other carriers primarily for their networks, primarily also for their costs. At United Healthcare and Cigna, we're all not competitive, you can see. So staying with Blue Cross Blue Shield was incumbent upon us to negotiate. We did do that, and that's where we currently are. Streaming through this as quickly as we can, what we did is we did the rates and the contribution amounts based on 7.7%. So that's what you're looking at. Continue, please. As you know, you have 2 HMO plans and 2 PPO plans, so we've outlined all the prices and the costs there for you, as well as who's enrolled, single, family, plus. Remember last meeting, we talked about a 2- and 4-tier rate structure. The suggestion is that if we went to a 4-tier rate structure, those individuals who just had a spouse on the plan would get some relief from the rates. Those who just had a child or children on the plan without a spouse would get rate relief. That's very true. Blue Cross is looking for that total budget to be full. They're not going to come off of the amount of their suggested overall plan because there's still the same number of participants in the plan, obviously. So although you would give relief to the 2 sections of the tier, that would be the +1 and plus children, if you will, the family would take it on the chin with higher rates. And that worked out to be about 146 families would be negatively impacted by a change to a 4-tier rate structure. So we know that that would be a decision you probably wouldn't make, but that information is here in front of you if you wish to move. Thank you. So we've outlined the cost there for you as well on the HMO, PPO, continue that. Thank you. So there it is, 146 employees would see a premium increase, while only 46 would see a reduction if we move to the 4-tier rate structure. So that study's done, and I think we have to talk about that. We still have open to us and to the board's discretion 2 options that would reduce the rates even further. The first is a $750 deductible, which could be to a $1,000 increase for the P16188 plan. It'd be a max of 2 times family. It would reduce the rates another 0.7%, and then increase the $1,700 current deductible to $2,500, 2 times family, would be a 1.8% reduction. So there are the requested plan options that could reduce the renewal even further. So that's, you would subtract that from the 7.7%. Dental is where we struggled last meeting, as you recall. We got a 30% increase from MetLife. We went out to the competition, and they weren't terribly more compelling. Terry specifically asked the question in one of the insurance committee meetings, if it's a structured plan, we're only paying up to $1,500 per individual per annum. Is there any consistency in that data, if you will? And couldn't we just self-fund that? Which was my suggestion. And in fact, I'm pushing to the board to consider self-funding. Consider this. There's a lot here, but we know that out of your top 25 dentists, those that have paid, that we have paid for services in this district from our employee base, These particular positions, dentists, I'm sorry, we were able to reach out to. And if you'll take a look at them, this is from the top to the bottom in terms of those utilizers. Kellen, Joseph, Mark, the others there, you can see if they're in or out of network. And we have MetLife for our network. That means if this dentist is in the network, they have agreed to some discount percentage. It hovers somewhere around 30 to 40%. If they're out of network, a $100 bill, we pay $100 back. There's no discount at all. So we felt that if we went out and contacted every one of the dentists that have ever been used in the plan and asked them if they would accept any discount at all, it'd be far more than we're getting currently. Even if it was 10% more from Kellen than he had given anyone else. We also asked another question of all the 25 participating dentists in our plan. Do they take anybody else's network? The reason we asked that question was, let's assume they didn't take MetLife, but they took Delta Dental, or they took Aetna, or they took someone else. Is because these are educators in our own district. They're maybe educating your own children. Wouldn't you at least give us a discount from one of the other provider networks that would be equivalent? In fact, you're not really giving up anything more. You have a contract with that, and we just don't have to keep it. They all uniformly agreed to get our contract. So we've sent out 25 contracts for consideration, starting at 40% reduction of the ticket fee. We don't know where we'll end up. I'm hoping it's around 30%. But once again, we dug deep into the data. We only had $70,000 of discounted claims in our plan last year. The other 30,000 of the 108,000 that was there discounted came from the actual employees' deductibles and bonuses. So to affiliate with MetLife only got us a $70,000 break, if you will, discount. Yes, sir.
Is that they only have one amount that they negotiate, which is 40%, or a pretty deep discount from in other words, reduction of service cost. They don't have flexibility, like for instance, you're suggesting that we might be self-insured.
There's a negotiation that goes on between the dentist and the client. And what they settled on across all of the cross-section of the dentists we use here was around 39% for the in-network dentists. But there was far more out-of-network dentists that were using than in. So the discount didn't really apply as much if you will.
70 grand.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
That's not much.
Well, no, if you consider that's true. So the average discount, what we think, if we were to get 20% from every dentist, well, remember, we're going to maintain the MetLife discount with the dentist that already in MetLife. But why would they change it? You know, they're already getting that from us now, so we're going to keep that 39%. But the dentists that aren't in any network right now, we think we could settle in around 20%. That's a 20% reduction on $450,000 of claims that we paid out this year. That's a substantial savings, and there's more. So we're hoping, look, we can get more than 20%, we will. Again, we went out with our contract at 40%, so the negotiation starts. We had $487,000 of expense last year in the dental. The use of MetLife network yielded us $70,520 in the current reporting period, which is the renewal. The additional $36,650 came from the participants themselves, and the amount of the out-of-pocket network claims was 54% of all claims were not discounted. In the board meeting last year, maybe it was the insurance community meeting, we asked, Gary, I think you asked, how many claims are large claims versus those small claims, those routine claims? We are, as a district, the utilizer of this plan, and that's a good thing anyway, because year after year we can see what we paid. I think last year it was $460,000 in paid claims, and the rest of it comes from admin. And this year it was like $457,000. It was remarkably close, almost dollar for dollar. So that tells you there's credibility in the data that year to year we know we'll have about $450,000 of expense. What do we do with that $450,000? We need to reduce the admin cost on it, which we'll do. We can get discounting on non-discounted claims that are not in the network now. That'll reduce that even further. And then the move to self-funding has one peculiar effect, which I'll share with you here in a moment. So if we apply 20% to those claims that were not discounted, we have another $48,760 in savings. So you add those together, the in-network savings would have estimated $71,000, as I said, above and beyond what we had. So you would add that to the discount we had. Total discounted savings for next year, I'm predicting around $120,000. That's off of the overall plan pay. Now we're taking the admin fee down to $3.50 per employee per month to pay the claims. Self-funded doesn't mean you pay, of course, we pay. That means that every time it comes in, we pay. Now some dentists will agree to a prompt payment discount. You say, we get the claim, we'll turn it over in 48 hours, but we'd like 5% off. the charge. They generally agree because that's money turned around right away. So that's low-hanging fruit. So as we negotiate for the very last level, at least we think we can get a prompt payment discount out of it. So we flag those claims when they come in. We know it's prompt payment, we turn them over in 48 hours. Get them right out the door and pay them. The admin cost within that life hovers somewhere around, I think, and I'm trying to get the exact number, although they're somewhat suspect about giving it to you, somewhere around $1,250 to $1,750 per employee per month. They wrap into that network access fees and other things that are hard to strip out. Just suffice it to say, we wouldn't have a network rental fees. We're saving that. We're going directly to the dentist in our own district, and we'll pay those claims for $3.50 per member per month. So there we have $1,250 I've used in it. That's a $9 per employee per month savings. We're saving $68,000 in administration alone. Add that to the claim savings of $120,000.
So that gets up to 188, is that right?
Yes, sir. Now, here's where I need you to, I need to educate you slightly, if you don't mind. Just I'm educating educators. We call this an inventory year if we go into self-funding, because it takes a while for a claim to be incurred and paid. So if we move to the plan January 1, when's the first time someone will get to a dentist unless it's an emergency? They have to schedule it, they go see the dentist then gives them a claim form, the claim form gets submitted, we pay it, and generally it's a 2-week turnaround. So you do see this trailing effect. We call that an inventory year. We're really only paying claims on 9 months of the year next year, where 1 quarter of the year gets to the end as a run out. So it's not smoke and mirrors. You really aren't paying the claims for the first quarter. So 1 quarter's worth of claims turns out to be $121,760. It may not be that much, but you understand what I'm saying. We're not paying the claims because they haven't run into the system yet. So if you're holding onto the money in your bank account, which you will be, we only ask you for the money as the claims came in and paid. We didn't send out that money. You have the use of that money for that first whole quarter. Now, what happens at the end? If you ever leave the self-funded agreement, you have that run out situation. You run out those 3 months of claims at the end. But once you're in self-funding and it's operating well, there's generally never release. And so next year it would be the $121,000 to $188,000. The negotiated discounts for $120,000 could happen. And so you're also looking at the renewal avoidance, we call it. You didn't accept the 30% renewal increase, so therefore the opportunity to go self-funding is avoiding a $143,000 increase entirely. So I think it's going to be a very successful year for your dental program. We know what you're going to spend. We know we can discount non-discounted claims around the network in the first place. Your admin cost drops. You can defer a quarter's worth of claims. You're going to have $1,000 savings.
That's if we self-fund.
Sorry to say that's true.
Yeah, and the
Yes.
question I have is, you have lots of clients, lots of districts, lots of people that you serve.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Self-funding seems like a fairly obvious choice.
No, for dental inspection.
It sounds to me like this would be a popular one for your clients. Is it?
So any group your size that's spending as much money as you are self-funds. It's just a given. So,
and there are lots bigger districts that probably.
Yeah, yes. So the advantage here, why you say, well, why isn't this working in Chicago, or why isn't everybody doing it? Well, virtually everyone is. But why would it work here specifically? Because it's that one-on-one connection with your dentist that's in your community, and you're not an insurance carrier. You're a school district. We need that discount to balance our books, to keep our educators here in place, and keep this plan attractive. And that's the pitch we went out on. So we universally had no pushback. I'm not saying we got everyone's discount, but we didn't get any no's. Yes.
You said that virtually everyone that's our size is self-funding and they're dental?
I would say the dental, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so the amount of money you're spending, your dental plan makes perfect sense for self-funding.
My second question, if we got into the self-funding plan, you said that we would have to have 3 months of run out if we decided that we were going to go back to a carrier.
That's correct.
How difficult of a transition is that?
Not easy. That's a very good question. Because the carrier at that time, a traditionally insured carrier, would ask you the obvious question. If you were self-funding and it was going well, why do you want back in to a traditional plan? And you could say to stabilize our budget and other things. But basically, we'd have to expose them that we had a horrific year in claims and we went back in. It's not easy. So I'm not trying to make it a live discussion. There's no consideration, but the savings is very quantifiable. And I can tell you, I'll see $200,000 next year, so without question.
And we do have,
But this is a situation that once we jump, it's hard to get back.
Absolutely certain, yes, sir. I want to be very clear on that.
right, but we do have precedent. In other words, we have established a pattern that we've stayed in that 450
That's
level.
exactly right.
So the concept of it being an anomalous year is not
Extremely unlikely.
right. I'm like,
You would have to hire an entirely new staff who all ran to the dentist, basically. Think about it.
who had bad history
Yeah.
of eating candy.
Yeah, exactly. Think about it. Everyone who needed to go to the dentist has been to the dentist year after year. You follow? So we have consistency in the data. And I have every opportunity to go speak to these dentists directly. Our office is on the phone with them virtually every day. Not one of them said no. They all accepted our contract, and I think it's very good news. It's a community approach. It's very different. We went out to those and said, look, 91 of our employees actually come to your practice, and we need your help.
So you only looked at the dentist that you felt that the staff were using more consistently?
We have the data. We knew exactly what it was.
Okay, so it's not just these listed here, there are additional ones?
There's additional, yes. And then they dropped off and how many folks, how many dollars was spent.
Okay, I have a few other questions. So when you do adapt to a self-funded plan, does that affect coverage as far?
We pay exactly the same way. The benefit doesn't change, and the employee doesn't see a difference. They stay with your card, so that's simple.
And
The change.
does this cover orthodontics?
Yeah, whatever the plan currently pays, we're paying the same. Exactly the same. Yeah. Opportunity to go out and talk to every dentist in the community who we knew we were paying money to, and say, this is a community appeal. This is not an appeal from a large insurance company looking for additional discount to add to our profits. We try to push down.
The key here seems to be that you were flexible on the amount that you would accept as far as the discount. We went from 40, like solid, we aren't going to negotiate on the 39% to, you're saying 20%, or is that flexible?
These were all the dentists that were out of the network and gave us no discounting at all now.
Right.
So anything they gave us was saving money off the paid plan.
Right, yeah.
So it was a no-lose situation.
And was that flexible between dentists? I mean, you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so whatever you can negotiate with each one of them.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Great.
Yeah. And we'll have that specifically for dentists for you by the time you make your decision.
Great.
But we started at 40 and they're working us down if they can. But again, if they were in the Aetna network and they gave Aetna 40%, we're saying we just want to mirror the Aetna discount that you have with them just for the district. And if you think about it, it's a very close plan. There's 646 folks on the plan in the dental plan. So that was a given number, right? That number was solid. It wasn't this great influx of folks coming in to chip away at the problem. Yes,
I have a mean question. The mean question is, can you, with a dentist that is, have you ever experienced anybody that has a plan where if you want to go to this dentist, you have a $1,200 deductible. If you want to go to this dentist, you have $1,000 deductible. I mean, in other words, you're paying, you want to go to this person who doesn't give us much of a discount, you're going to have to.
You know, I'm an advocate for it. I think that has to do with collective bargaining and everything else.
I understand,
but
what I'm saying,
when you're self-funded, you do remove yourself from some ERISA requirements, and you're able to do whatever you want in your own plan design. In many respects, yes. What I think needs to happen, and I don't want to be political, but I think for transparency would be great. If you were choosing a dentist new and you one gave 40% discount versus one giving 20% discount. Or 10, that might affect your decision. That transparency isn't here yet, but when it is here, it'll be a different marketplace.
But in most cases, once somebody finds a desk that they like and comfortable with,
I understand. I'm just being mean. I don't like to come out every once
You've
in a
been
while.
forewarned. That's why I stand over here.
Yeah.
So thank you. Let me continue. So the news is all just good news on the dental, frankly. If you decide to go self-funding, and I can assure you it's going to work well. Go ahead. The vision proposal, you're in a multi-year contract with IMED. We can suggest a change there whatsoever. So the same rates apply. We'll readdress that next year. You can see there's no increase or difference on the rate column. Finally, then, as our final recommendation was, given the great hacks that have happened in terms of Equifax, the SEC, right on back to Target and all these other organizations, we have recommended that you consider for your employees on a voluntary basis. It would be something that would be an empathetic move on your part. Just a suggestion, we put it up there now, the rates are also included there, and we chose LifeLock as our partner. This is best. So it's there, it's in the news quite a bit, so we thought we would address that.
And get a discount from that.
We did, yes, right. And those rates are right here. So that gives you an idea of what that would cost. So it's paid not by the district, it's paid by the employee on a voluntary basis. There's no minimum participation requirements. And with all transparency, there is commission in here for us. I want to be clear on that.
What is the difference between the two, the elite?
We do have, I believe we have that either printed out for you or we do have it here. The elite, we're not recommending one over the other. It's just a different level of protection and a different kind of monitoring that goes on if your Social Security is found to be passing itself around the internet. And the employee, the associate at the time of enrollment would get the choice to study both plans and make their own in that way. It's become very, I don't think we have a client that isn't doing it this year, frankly. It's just become something that's almost mandatory. So, Adam, what do we have after that? The rates? I think that's it. So consider this an interim update, but I think great news, and we're moving in the right direction. So we'll have solid work.
One quick question,
Yes, ma'am.
Sarah, you can help out. What is our time frame on moving forward? When is this going out to our staff, and what is that all look like?
Yep, so we'll meet on Wednesday for our next benefits meeting, come to the Common Board on the 17th for our recommendation and upon approval. We're then going to roll out open enrollment tentatively for November 1st for a 2.5-week period for January 1st effective date.
We should meet those dates.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there it is. That's the answer. Thank you very much.
Very comprehensive. Thank you so much.
We'll see you guys soon.
Okay, next we have the title of purchase orders, solar homes, K2 by Benchmark, LLI by Fulton, Fontis, and Pennell, and sites from Collaborative Classrooms. And this is an informational item. And also these items are included for approval in the purchase requisition listed in the business consent agenda.
Last year, I came before you to have sets of each of these interventions purchased so that we could pilot them in several of elementary schools, which is what we did this year. And then we have a committee, the MCSS committee, sat down, looked at our data, and decided that these are interventions that we want to add to our classrooms. These are interventions that will help some of our struggling readers. 2 of them are in English, 1 is for our bilingual students. And so what's on here is getting those materials into each of the buildings. These are not consumables. These are, what makes them expensive is their books. The LLI program comes with 10 boxes of books for 1 level that teacher uses. So kids in the LLI program read 3 different books in 1 setting each day. So it comes with a lot of materials, but these aren't consumables, so that's what's nice. Once we get them, we're off and we're running. You'll see 10 sets because I looked at Founders in Portland as 2 schools, so we buy them double because they're larger. And then for the bilingual Soluciones, we already had the 1 program that bought us last year, so then we just need to buy 2 more, so each of our bilingual settings will have a book, sets of material. So this is something, buying any reading materials is expensive, but they're so essential because the kids that we have now learn differently. And some of the interventions we purchased years ago are still working, but we need more that work for the students that we have now. And these are all research-based. They've been used for many years. So they're all programs that are up and running. Soluciones is it's hard to find anything in bilingual for intervention. So this is primarily for our K2 students in that program. Not that we could use it with a 4th or 5th grader that might be new to our country.
These are books. I mean, they're purchased rather than rented. Right. This is a forever.
Right. And I should say, we're not using with 1 group of students. So for example, LLI could be taught, there could be 5 groups running at the same level. A reading specialist, a special ed teacher, they could be using them. So the material, that's what we like about the programs as well. We don't have to have 10 sets in a building. Get 1 set in there and those materials can be shared among many people. So that was the other plus to these 3 programs. And then the last set of materials, it was interesting, Dr. Cohen mentioned it earlier. We went to our social justice camp we went to this summer, and we were introduced to a lot of books that are good to have in our classrooms that represent the students that we have.
Well, we are currently writing our social studies curriculum, so it fit in perfect. So some of those purchases you see in the last thing on items are for some of those books to be in every classroom that show our students in the books that we're reading. And some support some of the social studies stuff that we're working on now. And we're going with, of course, the literacy approach, because that's the one area we need to really, really keep working on it. So that's how we're writing the curriculum. Questions? Okay, thank you.
Next, we have the non-business consent agenda.
I have a motion.
Let me read it. That the Board of Education approve the non-business consent agenda items A through D.
I have a motion to remove from approval of personnel action items, the hourly FOS special project position.
Wait a second.
A second.
Roll call, please.
Jeff Albrecht,
Yes.
Pierre Bolat,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Valerie Pena Hernandez,
No.
Rick Smith,
Yes.
Howard Solomon,
Yes.
Fred Davis.
Yes.
Then we have that the Board of Education approve the non-business consent agenda items as amended. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second amendment.
Okay.
In the, related to the acceptance of the minutes, proposed, the closed session minutes of the last meeting. That contains a bit of paper that indicates the agenda items that we did not include. So we need the closed session minutes revised. And Melissa has agreed to go through the revisions and to include that in the minutes, but those minutes need to be removed from the non-business consent agenda.
So you're seconding, if I'm clear here.
No, I'm not seconding your motion, I'm putting in a second amendment.
Oh. Second motion?
To remove minutes that didn't occur.
So remove minutes.
Remove the approval of the closed
Remove
session.
the minutes. Yeah, thank you. To remove the approval of the closed session minutes. Those need to be revised.
To include what?
To include the 3 items of the closed session for which we adjourned that were not included, that did not undergo any discussion. To include information that says that they were not included in the discussion. We adjourned into closed session. There is a list of 6 categories of things for which we adjourned, and we discussed only 3 items from that list. So in order to clarify it and bring us into conformance with the Open Meetings Act, I suggested that we add 1 item that Melissa did not include in the minutes. That is a statement that we did not agree to. We did not hold discussion items 3, 4, and 6.
But it's complicated.
Yeah, I think, I'm fine removing it tonight, but I think we need to speak with our attorney, Amy Delaney, before we can.
This brings us into conformance with what we will be doing with the new items when press, thank you. When we conform to the press items that are recommended by IASB.
Can we postpone that?
Yeah.
Once we review what you want to remove,
Yeah, I'm not.
I'd like to know what you want to remove, rather than have it be just this kind of close.
And I think we need to look for our attorney and make sure that we're doing it the right way.
But we can postpone that, we can remove that at any time.
We can remove it and then bring it back on the next agenda once we
An
have.
approved agenda up for the closed meeting for the next meeting. Okay. You understand what I'm saying? I'd rather know what exactly you want to remove rather than just say.
I want to remove approval of the closed session. Of the closed session minutes, so that they may be revised.
I see. I understand.
There's really no harm in not approving the closed
Yeah,
session.
and then we can review it and then come back. So you're saying the other way around, in other words, you're saying remove it from that, or remove it from that, remove it from
We can bring
Look
that
at it
back
again.
next time after it is revised.
Right.
You can see
We
the
need to go
revised
to our
version.
attorney and make sure that it's something we should be providing prior to.
That's fine.
But we're doing it tentatively at this point.
Correct.
Okay. I think I understand what it is, Marcia.
So we need a second.
So we need a second motion.
I'll second your motion.
Okay, roll call?
Karen Black,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Valerie Penny Hernandez, Rick Smith,
Yes.
Howard Solomon,
Yes.
Fred Davis,
Yes.
Jeff Albright.
Yes.
Now we have that the Board of Education approved the non-business consent agenda items A through D as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call?
Valerie Penny Hernandez.
Yes.
Rick Smith,
Yes.
Howard Solomon,
Yes.
Fred Davis,
Yes.
Jeff Albright,
Yes.
Karen Black,
Yes.
Victoria Newport.
Yes. Okay, next we have that the Board of Education approved the purchase order requisition list and business consent agenda item A.
So moved.
All right, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Rick Smith,
Yes.
Howard Solomon,
Yes.
Fred Davis,
Yes.
Jeff Albright,
Yes.
Karen Black,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Valerie Penny Hernandez.
Next we have business and finance, Lincoln Elementary HVAC improvements, request to bid, and this is an informational item.
What I'm bringing before you tonight is a request to go out to bid on the HVAC improvements at Lincoln Elementary, which would include a replacement boiler, as well as an addition of a chiller system, which would provide air conditioning to the building. We did bid this out last year, so those are the numbers that were reflected in your proposal. But the fact is that the bids are only good for 90 days, the bid results, so we would need to go back out to bid and see what results we are able to get at this time. I am recommending moving forward with getting those bids out on the streets as soon as possible, and so that we can, the sooner we get on the streets, the sooner we potentially get on a contractor schedule, and sometimes can get some better rates when their schedules are not so tight. So bringing it for you today. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Tammy, what's the usable life of the boiler as is if we do not do this, just in terms of providing heat?
In providing heat, that boiler is a steam boiler. It's the only remaining steam boiler in the district, so it isn't the most efficient boiler. When it comes to remaining life, it's a hard thing to guesstimate. We haven't had a lot of issues in it over the last 5 years, with the exception of some tubes that were replaced. At the time, the decision was made to replace all of the tubes at a cost of approximately $10,000, which did actually extend the life of that boiler. For how long? It's somewhat hard to say. That boiler is nearing 60 years old at this point.
And we're talking about replacing it rather than repairing it like was done the last time for $10,000.
Oh, absolutely. This would be a full replacement of the boiler and the piping system. So we would be having a hot water system in the building rather than steam. It would still go through the tunnels at Lincoln. You may recall at Malta, we couldn't go back through the tunnels because they were so small and so full of asbestos. We couldn't even, we had to cap it off and run the piping through the ceilings and the walls. This is a tunnel system we can get into. The asbestos abatement, even at $30,000, is somewhat minor when it comes to what the bill could have been in regard to a project this size. And so it is a boiler and piping replacement.
And one further question, if I can, just quickly. On the chiller, that's also a replacement of the chiller that's there, or we don't have any chiller at Lincoln?
We do not have any chillers. And the system, what we'd be proposing would match the other systems we have put into place at Little John Jefferson and Malta over the last 45 years.
And this is the only one that doesn't have chiller?
That is correct. Or doesn't have air conditioning.
Doesn't have air.
We have air in other buildings that are provided by chillers.
Tammy, I understand the reason that we do not have air conditioning in Lincoln is mostly because of current draw, the electricity power needed to operate the chillers. That if we tried to run chillers, that we would wind up using something like breaking circuits and things along the circuit breakers a trip, and we wouldn't be able to generate enough power on the electricity that's there now. Is that correct?
Actually, we could not put a boiler onto that system, the boiler system, because of the fact that it is a steam system. There's not the piping to support a chilling system. What you may recall is a discussion of putting window units into that building. The electrical load of the building could not support putting window air conditioners into all the rooms that would be necessary to cool it properly. With this proposal, the numbers that are in here do include an upgrade to the electrical panel, because we would still need to upgrade the electrical system to support the boiler and chiller we're proposing.
Thank you, Tim. I'd like to make a recommendation back to you, though, that air conditioning might be possible if we had a greater amount of electricity available, and that many people, and we have a good flat roof on Lincoln, why don't we also at least look at providing solar energy to get enough electricity to be able to run window air conditioners in all the classrooms?
Thanks for that. We have another kind of meeting to discuss solar energy. Cindy Carter and I do. So, oh yeah, Tim's in that meeting too. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so that, as long as you're going out to bid, could that be bid as part of this, or would we then, should we wait for your meeting?
I don't think it would be together.
And I think if you just bring power in, it'd be ancillary to either way, I would think.
Well, looking at this going, we've got $1.2, $1.3 million bid. If we can get the electricity in place for half that much, and then put the window units all the way around, we could have cooling for maybe 2/3 of what the overall total price is.
I might also mention, we have window units at, for example, some Huntley classrooms that are not air conditioned. And I will tell you, it is difficult to maintain the proper temperature levels and humidity levels in those rooms with window units because of the number of students and staff, as well as the size of those rooms, potentially ceiling height, depending on what.
They also have sound.
It's a sound issue too. It's a great temporary solution to some extent, but from a long-term, cost-effective approach to this. And again, I do want to reflect back, the FFAC committee did consider this several years ago, and one of the key principles back then and focuses was to get parity amongst the buildings. And this is the remaining building that is not at the same levels for heating and cooling that all of our other buildings are. And one other point, what I'm requesting today, and it'll come back for approval at the next meeting, is strictly to go out to bid. If you approve this, move forward with this, it's gathering current numbers to decide if we can sustain it from the current budget numbers in regards to our life safety budget as well as our operating and maintenance budget. It is not saying, yes, we're gonna go through with it, but it's saying, let's go see what it would cost us.
Howard, from an engineering point of view, whether you use what's called DX, differential expansion, window air conditioners, what they're commonly called, versus a chiller system with remote fans, coils, and coming back to the central chiller, all of this, it's all engineering. I've done it. When I was at Fermilab, I designed all kinds of things like this. And what it comes back to is how many cents per kilowatt hour you're paying. Because the efficiency of each unit is different. But solar included, and solar can be a good thing, but often it comes back to you're getting your electricity so inexpensively that it doesn't pay off. It actually turns out to be more expensive rather than less expensive. So typically, in an industrial, commercial, educational, institutional setting, you end up with chiller units, and a hot water heating system, and the intermingle, the heating water is the same as the chilling water opposite ends of the seasons. And that turns out to be the most efficient. And so the meeting that you guys are going to have coming up, maybe you'll learn something new. But generally speaking, that's the reason why you go with chillers rather than window air conditioners, not to mention something said the noise. Right? That's always the problem with that.
And that's why you being in that building the last week, the fans were very disrupted because of the noise. I mean, they obviously were working, but it was disrupted.
And generally, the students next to the air conditioner is not comfortable.
Yeah.
Farthest away from the air conditioner is also not very comfortable.
There's another aspect of it too, and that's dehumidification. You can't dehumidify using window air conditioning. With the chiller system, if you want to, if you design it properly, you can dehumidify it as well as chill.
So this is just to get some numbers in front of us, right?
So do we have a consensus? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I have one question on the so why, and this goes back to our comment earlier, right? I've been thinking about this over the last several weeks, actually. Ever since the hot weather hit Lincoln, I've been thinking about it. Why are we financing this out of the life safety money for the most part, with another 60K, I think it was, out of, why do we not consider taking some of that fund balance if in fact we're going to stay up above 25%? Because when we dropped the 10K, or the 10 million rather, out of the 21 million grant into the fund balance, right? Was that arbitrary? I mean, Andrew's not here, but Cindy, maybe you can say.
10 million, that's what FFAC recommended.
Yeah.
So was it arbitrary to some extent?
Based on needs at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have a different ratio, a different fund balance percentage, right? I'm not too sure I believe what you presented last time with respect to what the state's going to do for us, which is going to improve that line that we always look at as to where our fund balance is over time. But if I do believe it, if it actually happens the way that last curve you showed goes, then it might make sense. And I don't know as to how you compare this against the life safety fund.
Well, I mean.
Should we consider it?
We'll talk more about this when we're gonna pay for it, right? Right now, it's just, we're just looking into.
We're going to approve the expenditure. I'm just curious.
I know.
Where's the best place to pay it?
Let's talk about that when it comes up.
And they may know more about that.
I think the public comment on this topic was well placed. We should consider it.
Thanks, Dave.
Next, we have new business and administration, board discussion regarding holiday classroom parties, and this is an informational item.
Yeah, I think I brought this up.
No, you didn't. He did.
Well,
back when we voted on it.
I should say, I said we'd revisit this. So I guess I'm the one who revisited this and called on the board members and talked about this because we had some parents step up in front of us and asking about it. And I personally, working in an elementary school, I like Halloween parties. I like, we don't call it Christmas party. It's a little different. And also it's Valentine's Day party. And so I kind of talked to some of my teachers and principals about, does it put a bigger workload on you? What's the biggest concern? And what don't you like about it, And for the most part, they all really like it. Principal, I asked her, is it a bigger workload to you? It's nothing to me, because classroom teachers got to deal with this, And, some people have parties that last 2.5 hours, some of them are only an hour. But it's really a lot of fun watching the kids walk through the school and just having the time of their life, If it's only for the hour, that's cool. Some people, kids work hard. You'd be amazed at what kids are learning in 3rd grade nowadays when it comes to math. Algebra, 3rd grade, really? Seriously, they work hard. And they have a little bit of fun now and then. I don't see no harm in that. Nobody's here to offend anybody or anything like that. I think it's all about just kids have a little bit of fun, so. But I just want to finish real quick. And it has been brought to my attention, and maybe we should ask parents about it, So I'm throwing it all out here for you guys to talk about. That's my opinion, how I feel about it, but we're here to discuss it.
I have a question. Jamie, when you were saying in Rochelle, they do Cinco de Mayo in other contexts. They do that in the schools? Was that something that you guys did in the school in your past district? A Cinco de Mayo celebration in school itself?
The main Cinco de Mayo celebration is downtown on a weekend, right? A weekend closest. There are programming. There is programming that's, it's in the school, but again, it's typically on Saturday around Halloween, celebrating Day of the Dead. And there's a very elaborate celebration built around that. But again, it's outside of the school day. It's organized by different organizations that are affiliated with the school, like PTOs, after school programming. But that particular celebration is to my knowledge, not during the school day.
Thank you.
Now, I have a question. I obviously was not on the board when this decision was made. So what was the reasoning behind removing them? Why was that something even considered? Who provided the board guidance? Go ahead.
I'd be glad to respond to that, Bill. And I regret that when this happened, I didn't provide a motion to remove that item from our vote. Here's how it happened, as I remember and understood it at the time. This was a meeting that we had over at the high school in the cafeteria space. And it was during the time when Senate Bill 100 was being brought to us. And there were changes required of us by Senate Bill 100. So staff brought to us a discussion. There were many people that spoke from our staff, and many questions back and forth, a few questions back and forth from the board at least. And I questioned it at the time. I said, why do we need to do holiday parties along with Senate Bill 100? Because I don't think we really needed to. And that's what I regret, that I did bring that motion forward at the time to remove the holiday parties issue from the Senate Bill 100, which we had to pass. Okay, so I voted yes. I wish now that I had said, let's see if we can pass an amendment motion to separate the two issues. Okay, so now here we are, a year later, whatever it's been, addressing the issue again. Okay, so that's kind of the background of it. And staff brought to us the same thing that our two commenters from leadership tonight brought. That there was this lack of inclusion, that some people were alienated, and that generally they apparently felt easier to implement these quarterly parties and call them by some other name rather than Halloween, Christmas, whatever, Valentine's Day, somebody mentioned. So that's kind of the history of it, as I recall.
And we don't call it a Christmas party, do we? I mean, we call it a holiday party.
Yeah. Yeah, and what we do in my village, and how we handle it there is they have what they call, the fifth graders do what they call holidays around the world. So, with the culture of the kids that's in this class, say you are from Puerto Rico and you're from Spain, whatever, and these kids do all this research and educate themselves on, where they may be from. And then they have like presentations in the cafeteria with a little story about, this is their country, this is their favorite food, and then they'll cook a portion of a little sample of the food they may have. And it's kind of a tour. The whole building can come through, and all the kids and teachers and parents, of course. It's really kind of a cool thing, And they do that with the cultures that celebrate the holiday. And that's just what it's called, holidays around the world. It's pretty neat. It's a lot of fun.
Can I bring up one of my concerns with this? As a special education educator, if let's just take a child who's wheelchair bound, right? And this is to kind of prove why I feel like it isn't not inclusive. If we had a child who was wheelchair bound, right, and needed to participate in PE, we wouldn't be like, oh, the majority can participate, so we're gonna just have you sit out. We would try, right, in special education, we would find an adaptive PE teacher to incorporate whatever the child can do, right? So if we remove the whole holiday aspect for multiple reasons, right? The board received direction from administration, from staff, from other people, and went ahead with it, right? I think that this is a perfect opportunity. I'm not saying don't bring back celebrations. I'm saying actually listen to our constituents. Let's listen to our parents. Let's survey our kids. Let's survey our parents. Let's survey our staff and try to see if there's a middle ground. There's a way to make it adaptive, make it to where it's inclusive all the way, and where we can maybe reach an approach of like seasonal based, or maybe strengthen our PBIS celebrations to where parents are allowed to come in and it's more of a classroom-based PBIS celebration, where parents are still bringing in things, where they're still incorporating some of that uniqueness of that individuality of the child without excluding them because we're limiting it to a word like holiday. We have to consider Jehovah's Witnesses don't even celebrate birthdays, right?
And I have some in my school. And what they do is they'll do things like they'll stand up and put their hand over their heart, but they won't say the pledge. And when it's time now for a Christmas program, they're all you're going to have is kindergarten through third grade, and they do sing-alongs. That's all they really do. Go up there and sing a few songs, and that's the day. And those kids will go up in the office, and they'll either do their homework or watch a movie or read a book. What does
PBIS stand for?
It's the positive behavioral initiatives. I don't know if you've been to the buildings yet. During Institute Day, they actually went over, like Little John. Little John linked it back to the social justice aspect. They linked it back to some of the things that are more tangible that kids can understand. And so what they do is they reward the kids for those positive behaviors they're exploring. So respect, let's just say this month is being respectful. So what they do is they celebrate all those different ways that they have been respectful. So they can have this fall, they're going to have, they're actually having it on Halloween. And they're not necessarily promoting Halloween, but what they're doing is still incorporating that aspect of having fun on that day without, because everyone ranges from celebrating it to not celebrating it. So let's celebrate something that we all can celebrate, right?
Or, I mean, from the other side of the coin, that when you were talking about the person in a wheelchair being included into a PE program, well, a holiday celebration is inclusive. That is to say, nobody's being excluded. Everybody is being brought in, except for those people who don't celebrate it. And then what can you do about that except for allow them to not celebrate?
And respect their
respect the
beliefs.
non-celebration. But the point is, what you're talking about is, I'm just turning it around and changing it to the point of saying, inclusiveness works both ways. In other words, when you have a holiday and you celebrate the holiday and you include all the people out there that celebrate in that, and there are a wide range of people who do celebrate around the December holidays. There's lots of different holidays and ways of doing it. It seems to me like it would be a perfect opportunity for everybody to be, if you embrace inclusiveness, that would be a perfect time to embrace it.
I would disagree greatly because it is being exclusive in the sense that a child doesn't choose a religion.
There isn't anything you don't exclude. That is to say, there's almost nothing.
There is, because I said, let me tell you, I worked at Jefferson for 4 years.
Hold on a second. There's almost no time when you don't exclude somebody in you embrace. You're saying, I want to embrace everybody. You can't include everybody in your embrace. There are people who don't want to be embraced.
And that's, I guarantee you that I understand that aspect. But I also understand that a child does not choose his or her religion. His parents or her parents impose that. We understand that completely. Now, being at Jefferson, we have a wide range of students. We're not just talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. We're talking about Muslims. We're talking about all kinds of religions. And we're, well, let me finish. Victoria said for me to let you finish, well, let me finish. Jefferson had a lot of different kids, okay? And parents made the decision that they couldn't participate. So what did I do? I had a seasonal approach party in the room for them. I understand that we have different approaches, but that was excluding the child. They cried in that room. They said, I don't understand why I can't do this. So when you have a child crying, and I'm talking about hysterically crying, and we have those kids that are crying because they want the holidays, but we also have those kids who cannot participate because their parents have made that decision for them. So as a school, we're supposed to create a safe haven. We're supposed to be inclusive, not necessarily say, oh, okay, well, the majority, 99% celebrate this, so let's just put this on. You can just sit in that room and not, I mean, that is not how we are going to run our schools and really promote that aspect of individuality.
Yeah, I get that part. I get the part that you're talking about, but I'm saying there is a point at which you're saying 99% of you can't do this because 1% doesn't, or 1% doesn't want to do it. That gets a little bit dicey, I think, for a lot of, I mean, our decision making as a school board is, yes, we have to be inclusive, but we can't say everybody, I mean, there is going to be a total 100% solution for everyone. That's not, I don't think that that's something that can happen. I think that we're looking at the better part of, I mean, what we're not using the word majority, but what I'm saying is this gives us, we can do this two different ways. We can either call this as an opportunity to include everybody and find a way to do that, or we can say, okay, we're going to do nothing. And how easy is it? I get that you're not, but wouldn't it be easiest just to say, all of you kids, we have issues, we as adults have issues, and you guys have to live with our issues as adults and our issues of inclusiveness and not be kids. I think kids want to be kids and they want to have opportunities to be kids, and we impose adult sensibilities on children at the risk of not having those children have a childlike opportunity or have a childlike way of approaching it.
So, I guess my comment would be that this is a interesting topic in the sense of the participation, right? You know, so, you know, I think that, we brought, everybody at work can understand both sides. You know, from the school administrator side, you know, gosh, you just want everybody to be able to learn as much as possible and create as an environment as free from any conflict and as free from any issues as possible, right? And then you've got some parents that say, hey, you know, I want to, you know, do a Christmas celebration in specific. My question is this, for example, I don't think I can tell you, I don't know enough about what is it that the parents want to see in specific. What do the parents want to be more involved in? You know, is it just about a Christmas party? Is it just about a Halloween party? You know, is it just about, you know, being more involved, you know, or invited to school to participate with their children at a party? You know, what is it exactly that we're talking about here? Because I think there's a generalism that's real dangerous, and that's either this or that, right? And I don't think any of us want this or that.
I agree. That's why I say survey.
I don't know, right? So I guess I'm more inclined to say I do think, you know, as Jamie said, maybe there is a sweet spot in here somewhere that may take a little time to flesh out what that is. But I think, you know, certainly from get more specific, more targeted input about, you know, what is it that parents really want to see, or what is it that they want to be a part of. I think that's where I would suggest that we go.
Because I will argue that with the seasonal programming, that's not tied to a holiday, which most of them fall around a holiday. They have a fall program that's in October. They have Friendship Week and you know, caring weeks that fall around February 14th. And parents are welcome to participate in those activities as well. So it's not saying that we eliminated you know, costumes and candy on February 14th, and we eliminated parents from coming to school. That's not the case. The parents are still welcome and encouraged to participate in these other fall activities, winter activities, spring activities. So, and if a school wanted to have a Christmas party, the PTOs are more than welcome to organize that event. And then those who want to go and participate in a Christmas program or a Valentine's program, or, you know, come and wear your trick-or-treat outfit, they're more than welcome to come.
No, but here's what cracked me up. You know, we're told in the schools they can't put up a Christmas tree. Or you can put it up, call it a tree. Celebration tree, we'll call it today. But yet we go out to the high school and have a meeting around the holiday. And they're out there listed in madrigals, and they got 2 trees sitting over there by the fireplace. Really?
Well, the difference, Fred, is that those madrigals are not compulsory.
I'm not talking, just saying it as an example. We're out there listening to them, and I see 2 Christmas trees over by the fireplace in the cafeteria.
And your handbook said kids would get sent home for wearing a costume.
I'm sorry, but this is the board discussion.
So that's the only thing I just wondered about. We're not, whatever we put up, whatever we're following here, it's obviously not across the board. That's my opinion.
And that's another good point, right? That is not being.
Good or bad?
That's understandable. What we're, you know, we've got to take into account that children attending schools is a compulsory event. That's the rule.
Well, what makes it right to have one at high school?
And so what we need to avoid is indoctrination into religion of any kind.
And that's not a purpose.
That's the reason we sometimes need a separation of
believe
church and state.
Okay. Get to the Constitution. It doesn't say we're free from religion. It says the government cannot establish a religion. Okay, it doesn't say you can't, you know, educate or present or inform. You know, and why not include everybody? I'd like to learn about a lot of different. Absolutely. or other ideas.
So I
that
think
people have.
the point that we get to, Terry, is that we are wind up reaching across the line of indoctrination. And we shouldn't go there.
Yeah, and on the other side of the coin, like Rick said, and I would disagree, Rick, I'm not interested in coddling the kids to the point where when they get to be young adults in their 13, 14-year-old range, they don't know what to do when somebody, stares them down out in the street. I mean, yeah, you do have to protect the younger kids a bit, and you certainly have to listen to what the parents would like. And I think we should do that. We should do a survey to find out what the parents would like. But, I worry a lot, not just about this particular thing, holiday parties, but the so-called free space, or safe spaces rather, that we've heard so much in this lately. Come on, when you leave, your 12th grade and you go off to college, holy cow, you're in for culture shock, if you want to call it that, right? And if the kid's been too coddled and too safe spaced over the years, that person's going to have a very difficult time figuring out where he or she wants to be in their life.
I have one question. Sure. I have one question. If the decision is to bring back holiday parties, then what does that have to look like? What will implementation look like? Because I'm going to guess that it wasn't consistent across the district anyway. So what does it have to look like?
Well, I tell you, Jamie, honestly, the reason why I brought this up, because I've been approached by a number of parents. Okay, what do you guys do? This is what I told you. And they want their kids to be able to put on a costume and parade around the school like they did as a kid. And I don't see the harm in that, so that's why I brought it up.
So the policy that they can wear, so are we talking about allowing students to wear costumes to school?
Well, that was my point.
Last year we had that. I mean.
That was my point. What are we talking about? I really don't.
Yes, Pembroke did allow it, but I think they just allowed it, didn't promote it.
Oh, really?
Right?
I wanted to.
Allowed them to wear their costume.
I think the most point, it seems from what I heard, is that putting this out to the parents and saying, some parents have made comments, they've made lots of different people have anecdotally made comments about wanting to return to holiday parties. I think what we do is invite input and say, what does that mean? What do you mean when you say you'd like to have holiday parties? Just saying, I'd like to have holiday parties, there's a lot of holidays. I mean, so I'd like to have some ideas to those people, instead of it being anecdotal where people just make comments to you in the grocery store or something. I'd like to have some sort of thing where we get some formal input as to what people are wanting.
What you feel is lacking.
What do you think? Yeah, what do you, how come we don't, those free celebrations?
I guarantee you there's people that aren't aware of the existing. Right.
Yeah.
And they can say, we do a great job in community, but I guarantee you there's people that aren't.
Probably right.
I mean, if we need to, we want parents to.
I'm saying this
want
has
them
to be a
feel
more.
welcome, and we need something like that.
This has to be a more of a deliberate approach. Very strong feelings. We have to slow this down and get the ratings in. What are we really deciding?
I'm aware that there are very strong feelings out there, but it's anecdotal. It's like, hey, I want a Halloween party or whatever. I think I'd like to have a little bit more of an approach where we look and see what people really want.
So could we have Jamie, pretty much speak to cabinet, and then from that point assign what committee or who would be responsible for serving, or creating a survey that's sent out, and that data comes back and is put in a presentable form for the board to discuss, and then move forward after that. That would be the next step.
I'd like to see it before it goes out.
Not a yes or no.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah, and it has to be where you could tell it. And it has to be.
I wouldn't know whether to say yes or no. I don't know.
It's open-ended, and what would we be saying, like you were saying, what would you be saying yes to?
They're providing options for feedback.
Are we talking about costumes? Are we talking about violent raffles? Are we,
What didn't work about PBIS, or what wasn't inclusive enough that parents didn't feel that?
Right.
That was
I think that's exactly the question, and putting it out to them and saying, I'd like to know, I'd like to know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that I'd have to have more information, and I certainly don't want to put a survey out without me looking at it as a board member and saying, what are we
Yeah, I
asking?
agree.
So a survey brought back to the board for review before we send it out.
Yeah, and I'd like to send out to all the district parents if I can, I don't know how that's gonna work.
Okay, we'll get a survey all together.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have approval of five-star program, and this is an action item, that the Board of Education approve the introduction of the five-star student program, DHS, for 2017-2018 school year.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
Just as at the last meeting, I still am not convinced that this five-star program is not harmful to those students who don't want to participate. That we will have some students who are in school simply to learn. We have others who are there just because they are forced to be. And putting something where you give a set of rewards to that set of students who are usually pretty darn popular and going to get awards anyway is probably not productive, and I will be voting against this.
Well, we got James and Mark here. Are kids going to be forced to partake in this?
I think, as we said last time, it's not anything that we're going to put rewards on it right now. We're going to start at a very slow pace, investigate with other schools who have participated in this, use this just initially to see where we're at, and then move forward to where we can build this around what's best for Bell High School.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, we were actually just making a comment that homecoming, it would have come in handy. Number of students showed up having lost tickets, having lost IDs. We obviously want the students there, if the students have paid for the tickets. The students are our students. Five-star just gives us an opportunity to track that.
When it comes to something like getting in, yes, we should have our students there. And something like an ID card or a chip of some sort is appropriate for that, but tying any kind of reward to it.
Yeah, we have no interest. The other thing that Five-Star would have done, we have a number of students that use homecoming, unfortunately, as an alibi. They come, they check in, they're there for a few minutes, and their parents, they're there till 10:30. We have no idea where they go. Five-Star would actually, we could have them swipe out, and if anybody would ask us, we'd be able to provide that data for them.
No, no more questions. Now, now how would they be accountable? What would you say they'll be, say tracked? Would that go through their ID badge?
Go through their ID badge.
Their ID badge.
Their ID badge. And in the event that they were to lose an ID badge, which does happen, high school kids lose stuff, we pull them up through Skyward and would be able to manually override that with their ID number, having been identified them because their picture is tied to their Skyward account.
And the badge is something they have every day with them.
It's an ID card. They're all issued an ID card.
Yeah.
They should have them with them. They may not always have them. We don't require kids to wear tags at this point with ID badges. Some schools do. We don't do that currently, but kids are issued an ID. It's actually part of the contract we developed with our yearbook company. We got IDs are issued when they take their photos for yearbook.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Rick Smith,
Yes.
Howard Solomon,
No.
Fred Davis.
Yes.
Jeff Halgren,
Yes.
Mary Malott,
No.
Victoria Gifford,
Yes.
Valerie Pena Hernandez.
Yes. And with that, the meeting will be adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.